The Edmonton Oilers lose a stinker to the Dallas Stars 8-3 in an embarrassing effort again for a team that still really truly has yet to respond outside of that Florida game to the 9-1 and 5-1 beatdowns from the Colorado Avalanche and the Buffalo Sabres. I long time ago at the end of the 24 season when we lost game 7 to the Florida Panthers, I had a conversation with a friend from that season that made a large impact on a lot of you when it comes to earlier on that year when we were getting close to firing Jay Woodcroft. And, it's something I promised we'd never get back to. Right? We had Chris Knobloch. We could look past it and we'd never see it again. But, it's a little nuts out there on the ice right now for the Oilers. A little nuts in the organization, so it seems, and a little nuts with goaltending, a little nuts with what's on the bench. So I think it's only appropriate, friends, we get to a Squirrel Suit edition of Dolynny TV tonight. An effort from the Oilers, which I think both Louie and Jack, on a really special, impactful night for a lot of people in the arena, knew just was not from the onset going to be good enough for the Oilers to win this game over top of the Dallas Stars tonight. Like I said, it's a little nuts that we're 25 games into the season, kind of in the midst of it right now, returning home from a 7-game road trip, and that is the game we reward fans with for being away for 7 games, 17 days, something like that, something silly. Anyway, it's all, I think, really easy answer here is your eyes just gloss over at this point with just how routine the pathetic efforts from this Edmonton Oilers team have really become, and just how mundane, honestly, watching the Oilers play hockey is. And that's where, again, it drives you a little squirrely to some extent. In fact, to a large extent, if I'm being honest with you, watching this Oilers team try and just fight their way out of the wet paper bag that is their garbage efforts night in, night out, so it seems, this season. And I know there's been bright spots. I know we just won against the Florida Panthers. That's great. But again, it came down to the same thing I told Patrick in the discussion there we had out at Big Hill Springs Park outside of Cochrane, is you need to build on a big win against Florida if you get the big win against Florida. Instead, tonight, you go back to that Colorado game, you go back to that Buffalo game, and just reset all the goodwill you've made with the team, all the goodwill you've made with the coaching staff, all the goodwill you've made with the fans, and just immediately shove it in the garbage can and say, hey, we'll worry about this at some other point that we really don't care to see right as of now. And this on a night in which, we found out via the trade board from Nick Kyprios that the Oilers are now being connected to Jordan Binnington, whether you see him as an upgrade or you don't. Something has to change for this Edmonton Oilers team. There's Frank Saravalli today mentioning that, hey, maybe the Oilers were going to make a change after the road trip in terms of goaltending and call up Connor Ingram in place of Calvin Pickard, but that obviously didn't play out. Whatever you want to say, the team stood up for him or the team thought better of it. Who cares who done it, because it just doesn't matter. The Oilers lose the game after the road trip 8-3 to the Dallas Stars, and just in an embarrassing fashion. I mean, the goals that were scored in the first period on Stuart Skinner, man. I mean, I understand the hate for Skinner. I understand that a lot of people cross the line with their hate for Skinner. But man, I do not understand how this team just does not give a damn with Stuart Skinner in net. They will do whatever it takes to lose that game, as it appears every single night. And unless Stuart Skinner turns on the Jets every minute of every game, which I understand that's what everybody expects, but at some point your team's got to be capable of defending in front of you. I don't care how many goals you've let in. You know what? Pick up your guy. That's I think, a pretty basic principle in hockey, is go out there and push the other side. Don't just keep relying on your goaltender to win you hockey games. The Oilers aren't a 1-0 sit on a team. And unfortunately, they are thinking they are, or doing whatever it is that those teams do. But it is just embarrassing, honestly. And like I said, there's a reason, right? I promised myself that this Squirrel Suit was done It was never coming back out. We were finished with it. I had moved on. I have it in a bag in the studio as a breakout in case of emergency. But this really shouldn't be an emergency. This really isn't an emergency. The Oilers are like right 500-ish. Like, we're not, sky's not falling, but gosh darn, does it feel like it is. Man, oh man, like the coaching's been questionable this year. The goaltending's been suspect at best on the best of nights. The offense missing in action almost night in, night out to start this year. You got the defense, which is a tangled mess of fishing line that, I mean, good luck. You're just going to have to slice it right down the middle and hope it falls apart perfectly for you, and you can just reset the reel because it is just not getting better. And again, I go back to, right, we've talked about Chris Knoblauch, we've talked about Stuart Skinner, we've talked a little bit about Calvin Pickard, we've talked about, you know, Mark Stewart, we've talked about everything there is to talk about this Oilers team when it comes to just being better. And like I said a few moments ago, it just comes down to there needs to be a change. And I think at this point as Oilers fans, we don't get to pick what it is. Stan Bowman's just got to throw a dart at the board and say, this is it, and make it happen. Now, here's where this ends, because end of the day is it's not all doom and gloom out of the Oilers game tonight. I think it's very easy to say Connor Clattenburg was the largest bright spot you will ever see in an 8-3 loss for the Edmonton Oilers, scoring his first NHL goal tonight. A beauty of a celebration, somewhat reminiscent of another guy that wore number 64 that was also a big player favorite of mine in Nail Yakupov. And obviously as well for the Oilers, you know, you get some offense out of Bouchard. Jack Roslovic scores another goal. Like, there are some things not to be negative about. And that sounds absolutely ridiculous to say because it should be some things to be positive about. But yeah, no. Positive's not a word I want to use after tonight. Again, I don't think anyone's seen me necessarily be angry in this post-game edition, and that's kind of where I'd say on the nightcap here tonight that I don't want to be angry. I'm disappointed, I'm embarrassed, I'm frustrated, but angry isn't really a word I'd use because I'm just a little bit numb to this at the end of the day at this point. So that's kind of where we find ourselves after another game, a Dallas Stars game in which I might have, had some jokes on the drive home about, it's Stuart Skinner in net tonight. Well, that means it's a shutout, right? That's what he does against the Dallas Stars. Instead, it's a forfeit goal against first period and ultimately a huge loss in a game that would have been a huge 2 points to build off of after the 2 points against Florida. For right now, though, friends, thanks for being aboard here on Dolynny TV tonight on the post-game edition. Let's hope this guy ain't coming out the rest of the season. Like I said, I went a whole season without having to bust it out. Almost 2 years without having to bust it out. Over 2 years, technically, if we don't count that playoff appearance where we just said, hey, this turned out all right. That'll do it for me tonight. Have yourself a great evening. I am up on out of here.